Welcome to Glisten's Culinary Delights. Today we're going to make something super awesome for St. Patrick's Day. We are going to make some Irish meat pies. First things first, I have a half of an ounce of porcini mushrooms, and these are dried mushrooms. Now a lot of you are going to be like, no, I hate mushrooms. But I promise you, like, this meal is going to be awesome with these mushrooms. So since these are dry, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get some really hot water, and I'm going to put 2 cups of water in here, and I'm just going to let these soak for like 20 minutes while I'm working on the rest of my recipe. So okay, so here is our porcini mushrooms. They're in 2 cups of hot water. I'm just going to let them sit for about 20 minutes while I'm prepping the rest of the recipe. Now, I know a lot of you that hate mushrooms are like, no. Or maybe you're thinking,
that's disgusting.
Or maybe this.
Please, no, 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 no.
Or maybe you're thinking this.
Hideous, nasty.
But whatever you're thinking, I promise you this is gonna be an amazing recipe. So I have my hot plate on, and I put my Dutch oven on top of it. I'm just letting this heat up, and then once it's all hot and ready to go, I'm going to put some olive oil in it. But first, I'm going to season our meat. Now I got a chuck roast, and it's about 3 pounds, and you can use any type of meat you want. So, and I cut it into squares, just like this. You don't want huge hunks because it's gonna go into a meat pie. So you want it to be able to put in the pie. So I'm going to season up this meat, mix it all together, and I'm just gonna season it with salt and pepper. Now that it's all seasoned, I'm just gonna stir it up so each piece gets some of that seasoning on it. The key to this is to get seasoning on all sides of the meat. Our pot is hot. I'm going to start sticking pieces of meat in here and just brown up them on all sides. You don't want to overcrowd your pan, so don't put too much in there at once. Now as your pieces brown, once it's ready, I just have another bowl that's empty to put all my finished pieces in. You're not trying to cook all the meat, you're just wanting it to be brown on the outside. Alright, so I've got all that meat out. I'm just going to put more in. If you feel like you need more olive oil in your pan, go ahead and do that. Otherwise, just keep adding your meat. I have my meat all out of the pan. It's just a nice, delicious bowl of meat right there. And next I'm going to do is I have some carrots and onions, 2 onions and 4 carrots. And I've chopped them up into small little pieces. And I'm going to stick them in my pan with the oil, the same pan that I used for the meat. Okay, so you're going to mix this all up, and you're going to cook it for 5 to 7 minutes. Just to get everything a little bit softer. So our onion mixture and our onion and carrot mixture is done. We're going to start to make a roux for our stew that we're going to put in our meat pies. So I have 4 tablespoons of flour that I'm going to put in our mixture, and then a tablespoon of brown sugar. Okay, so you're just going to stir it all together and just let it cook for about 4 more minutes. It's going to get kind of clumpy, and that's fine. That's how it should be. If you see any clumps of flour, kind of try to break those up. Once that cooks for about 4 minutes, I'm going to add in my meat mixture with all the juices that I've kind of got collected down at the bottom. Alright, so I'm done with this part. I'm just going to move this over because we're going to use this space for the rest of it. Just leave this aside because you're going to put more things in it in just a second, but we're going to get everything else ready. Alright, so you remember those porcini mushrooms that we had soaking? We are going to work on those now. So I have my liquid, and I'm going to save this liquid because we're going to put this into our stew. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use a strainer to get all the mushrooms out, and I'm going to chop these roughly so that they aren't completely whole. Alright, so you can just set this aside because we've got one more thing we need to do before you put it all together. Okay, so now I have our beef stock that we're going to use, and I have 2 beef bouillon cubes. So I heated up our beef stock in the microwave. And I'm just going to put the bouillon cubes into the beef stock. And then I'm going to whisk it all together. Alright, so here is the last part before we put this stew in the oven. So first thing we're going to do is we have some balsamic vinegar that we're going to put in here. We have the water from the mushrooms that we had. Now if you don't like mushrooms and you're not going to put the porcinis in, then you can just put regular water. It doesn't have to be flavored with the mushroom juice in there. And then our chopped porcinis. Here we have our stock. Now I'm using 3 cups of stock. A lot of people when they make this, since it's an Irish meat pie, they'll put like some Guinness or something else in there. And if you are going to do that, then just put half of the amount of stock. So 1.5 cups instead of 3 cups like I'm putting. And then last but not least is I'm gonna put our seasonings in there. So we've got some thyme, I've got some parsley, and I've got a bay leaf. And I'm just gonna bundle them together and put them in the middle of our stew as we stir it. Now it would be a good time to like scrape that bottom too, because you're gonna have stuff down below that you want incorporated into your stew. Alright, so I'm just going to cover it with my lid and I'm going to stick it in my oven. I have it preheated to 325 and you're going to leave it in there for a couple of hours, up to 3 hours, just depending on how long it takes that meat to soften. I would check it about halfway through. Alright, so now that we have our stew in the oven that eventually will become part of our Irish meat pies, I am going to cook some bacon. I have 4 strips of bacon that I cut up into small little cube strips. And I'm just going to put it in my hot pan and cook it until it's brown, and then you're going to drain it in a paper towel. Okay, so now that I have my bacon out of the pan, it's all cooked, it's ready to go. I have it in a plate with a paper towel to suck up any excess grease. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to empty the bacon grease from the pan that I was using, and I'm going to put in a small container of mushrooms. Now here I have baby bellas, but you can use the white mushrooms too, or whatever you can find in your store. And again, if you hate mushrooms, I'm sorry, but if you like them, you can put them in your dish. If you don't want them in there, then just skip this step. It will change your flavor just a little bit in your meat pie, but not by much, and it'll be a flavor that you are better at appreciating since you hate mushrooms. See you people out there that hate mushrooms. So you're just going to put these in your pan, and I drizzled this a little bit with, it has a little bit of the bacon grease, but I drizzled it a little bit with olive oil too, just so they can cook just a little bit. Now I'm just going to cook these until they release their liquid and they start to turn golden brown. One of my favorite smells is grilled mushrooms. So good. Okay guys, we're almost done, I promise. So for this one we have 2 ramekins. These are the large 10-ounce size ramekins, and I'm going to use a stick of butter, and I'm going to butter all the sides of the ramekin for our meat pies. So you want to get butter everywhere because you don't want it to get stuck. You are going to make sure your pie dough goes all around, all up to the top. So that's why you want everything to be buttered. Okay, so I have my ramekins here and I have my pie dough. Now, I made this in advance. This is the recipe from my pie dough from my persimmon galette video. So if you want to know how to make this dough, head on back over to my channel and find that recipe. It's a really simple pie crust that we're going to use. And I just put it in the fridge. It's been sitting in the fridge for a few hours now. so it's able to roll out. I have my lightly floured surface here, and I'm going to put some flour on my rolling pin. And since I'm only doing 2 ramekins, I am going to cut my dough into 4s. If you are doing more ramekins, you can, or you can do smaller ramekins too. You'll just need more pie dough. So I'm going to cut my dough into 4s, and then we are going to roll it out into circles. It doesn't have to be a perfect round circle or anything like that, because you're going to cut it once you have it in your ramekin. Just need to make sure that it's wide enough to cover the whole thing. All right, so let's check that out and see how that looks. All right, it's looking good. Okay, and because this is not flat, you're gonna wanna kind of adjust it while it's in your ramekin. You can kind of push it and... All right, so here we go. They're all ready to go. I'm going to use a knife, and I'm just going to cut the side. If you have some kitchen shears, you can use that too. Cut any excess dough off of the sides. I do still have some dough left, and that's gonna be the dough that I use for the top. At this point, you're going to want to raise the temperature of your oven to 425. Now you're still gonna have your stew in there, and that's all right. It's just gonna cook at a higher temp for a little bit while you cook your pie crust. You're just going to cook your pie crust for about 10 minutes, 10 to 12 minutes, I guess, until they're a little bit brown. I'm also going to put some beans or pie beads, if you have them, pie weights, in here so that it doesn't puff up. Okay, so I have some parchment. Just going to cut a small piece and cut it into 2. This is going to help with the pie weights or beans if you're putting beans. It'll just help you take it out. So I have pie weights here. Pie weights, they're just little small ceramic circles. I'm just going to stick some in the ramekin. Spread them out a little bit, because your parchment won't do a very good job at doing that. So do the same thing with this one. As I said before, you can use beans and do the exact same thing if you don't have pie weights. Okay guys, so we have our dough out of the oven. I'm going to remove the pastry beads or beans, if you use beans, out of here. All right, these are my pies. They don't need to be completely done because they are gonna bake for a little longer with a stew. But this is what it looks like at this point. You're gonna want to lower your temperature back down to 325 on the stove now that you have these out of the oven, and just let it simmer for a little longer. I did check mine when I took these out, and it wasn't quite done yet. The meat wasn't quite soft. You'll know when it's done when the meat's nice and tender, and you can pull it apart with the fork, which mine wasn't able to do that just yet. So I'm just gonna leave mine in for about another hour while these cool, and then we will come back to it. It's been a few hours. I checked our meat and it's perfect. It's nice and tender. And so we are gonna finish putting this together. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to remove the sprigs of thyme and parsley that you have, like this, out of your mixture. So go ahead and do that. Okay, so now that I have that removed, I'm going to add the bacon and the mushrooms and stir that in. Make sure when you're removing your thyme and your parsley that you remove the bay leaf as well. So now that it's all stirred and everything is incorporated, you're going to make sure that you have a slotted spoon, because you're going to put this meat into your pie crust, and you don't want too much of that liquid to go into your pie crust, because you're just going to end up with a soggy bottom and a soggy pie. Nobody likes soggy bottoms. So we are going to get some egg wash, and this is just 1 egg with a teaspoon of water. You can also do milk if you want to. Water's just really easy. I'm going to brush the sides of my crust. So I'm going to stick the meat mixture into your dough. Remember, kind of drain some of that juices. You just want it to go just a little bit above the line of your dough. Now this stew is really good just like on its own too. So if you don't want to make meat pies, you can just make the Irish stew and just eat it as is. These are good. I'm going to get my dough out of the fridge now. Okay, so earlier I rolled out the tops of the dough when I was rolling out the bottoms. And so I'm just going to remove it out of the plastic wrap and put it on the top of my ramekin. Now you're gonna kind of try to pleat it together so that way you can get the 2 pieces of dough together. Here's my rolled out dough. Like I said before, it doesn't really matter the shape of the dough because you're gonna cut it to size. So you're just gonna cover it and you're going to press it in to the sides of the dough that you already have. Now that I have it pressed, I'm just gonna kind of cut the sides. You can use a knife to cut the sides if you'd like to get the excess dough off. All right, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to just put a few slits in the top of my dough. This will give it a vent. Last but not least, I'm going to brush the top with your egg wash. Make sure it's completely covered. Okay, so now that I have the egg wash on there, I'm just going to put some coarse sea salt on the top of this. And I'm going to put them in the oven. Now make sure you have your oven at 425 and you're going to leave them in there for about 40 to 50 minutes. Okay guys, so everything is done. It's nice and golden brown on the top. I'm going to lift them out of here in a minute, but you're going to let these cool for like 10 to 15 minutes. It's very hot in the inside of them. So once they are cool, we will lift them out of our ramekins and I'll show you the finished product. Okay, so it's been our 10 minutes. I've got it kind of turned over on this so I can take it out of the ramekin and show you what it looks like. Pretty awesome. Alright, so I'm just going to slowly flip it over. It's nice and golden brown everywhere. We're going to taste this one. I want you to get some pictures of the inside. Alright guys, so I have it, I cut a section out of it so you can kind of see what it looks like on the inside. It smells delicious. The top is nice and crispy. So I am going to taste this and see how it goes. It's perfect. Now the way I did the mushrooms really helps because they're not like gooey like mushy mushrooms. They're still kind of crisp on the inside. The meat is nice and tender, and then you got that crispy crust. You also got some of that the stock from inside of that stew, which makes it kind of nice and moist, and the carrots, everything kind of just blends well together. It is so good. It's so, so good. So if you're looking for something to make on St. Patrick's Day, this is the dish that you should make. It's perfect. You can make things in advance. You can make the stew the day before. You can make the dough the day before. And it is amazing. All right, guys, thanks for watching today where we made a wonderful St. Patrick's dish, Irish meat pies. I'd love for you to like and subscribe to my channel. You can also head over to my Instagram, Glisten's Culinary Delights, and see my reels that I have going on there. If you have any questions, please comment on this video. You can also see the recipe down in the description. I look forward to doing more videos with you guys, so wait for next Sunday. Thank you very much.